Hi everyone, and welcome to our Q2 What's New in SAP HANA Cloud session. My name is Susan, and I'm part of the product management team for SAP HANA Cloud, and I'm more than excited to walk you through a few innovations of our recent QRC2 delivery for HANA Cloud. Of course, in an hour, we cannot cover all the innovations we delivered, which is why we're only taking a look at a few, but if you are looking into a more comprehensive overview, I can definitely recommend our What's New blog post, which is behind this QR code on the very slide you can see, or our technical documentation for all the technical details. As always, I am not alone here in this webinar. I do have many of my great colleagues with me here in the back end, and they will cover their specific areas of expertise and give you a tiny deep dive into what has been happening in their area. So, talking about what's happening, let's have a brief look at our agenda. We will start with a general update where I will cover a few of the general innovations we delivered. And then we will have a look at updates on NSE and table partitioning, taking a look at machine learning, security enhancements, what's happening in the AI for database application development space. And last but not least, we will have our colleague Rob cover the thin clones for the data lake relational engine innovation that has just been delivered. With this, we're already entering into the general update. And I am quite happy to start this update with the announcement of the launch of SAP HANA Cloud in SAP Sovereign Cloud and NS2. What does that mean? So with this delivery, regulated industries can also benefit from HANA Cloud, as it is now meeting enhanced digital sovereignty requirements. The offering is basically built on the standard HANA Cloud offering, and is then enriched with sovereign cloud capabilities. That means we're offering advanced country-specific capabilities for regulatory requirements across all the 4 dimensions of sovereignty, which means data, operational, legal, and technical. Okay, that's probably still a bit abstract. That means we basically offer in-country data residency, local operations, and all required certifications. The initial release is available in 4 countries. So we do offer Canada, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand, but we're expecting to release NS2 in the US by the end of Q2. Moving on to the next innovation, we're looking into the area of multi-tenancy. We delivered general multi-tenancy for HANA Cloud end of 2024 and are now enhancing the capabilities with a tenant move and a tenant data copy feature. You can now move database tenants or copy data of database tenants between HANA Cloud instances within the same data center. The execution of this is done via self-service, so you are just using the tenant management service REST API. A UI support is planned for HANA Cloud Central later this year. You can definitely benefit a lot of this. So taking a look at the tenant move, you can easily now balance the number of tenants between instances or relocate tenants due to your specific needs. The copy feature also offers a few benefits, but let me name one. You can use these copies for tests, demo, or training purposes quite easily. Just last quarter, we delivered our knowledge graph engine and are now working on enhancing the engine's features. Let me name 2 specific enhancements we made over the last quarter and just delivered recently. So one is the inferencing. You can now generate and store triples based on existing graph relationships. And these support RDFS and OWL-based routes. So you can definitely find more details here on the slide, but I'm not covering more right now. But I will move on to the knowledge graph validation. This feature allows you to ensure data quality by validating RDF triples using the shapes constraint language. This way you can define validation rules as shapes, run validations directly on the RDF graphs, and also generate violation reports as new RDF graphs. One more innovation for the general update. You've probably heard a lot about our self-service migration tool, and we're once again adding a few more new features here. With the Q2 release, we're supporting the migration for specific data types and indices, so your migration process with the self-service tool becomes even smoother. You can now migrate text and bin text data types to the NCLOB data type. You can also migrate short text data types to NVARCHA, and you can migrate full text indices to fuzzy search indices. This basically provides you with a couple of benefits. So you will benefit from a seamless transition. It also reduces your manual effort as the migration is done automatically. It does also speeds up your migration tasks, and it also helps you to ensure compatibility with the latest database standards. Summarizing it, you can move your data to HANA Cloud faster and with less complexity. And with this, I'm already handing it over to Rüdiger to give us an update on NFE and table partitioning.
Yeah, thanks, Susan, and welcome also from my end. And I will cover some updates on the native storage extension and table partitioning. So let's start with the native storage extension. As you know, that's a very famous feature in HANA Cloud. And one of the key essential elements is the buffer cache, which allows to load data from disk to memory and also to unload data from memory to disk in a very smart and efficient way based on a least recently used algorithm, and provides a very, very good processing of warm data in the HANA Cloud instance. Our focus is in the recent innovations to elastically scale the buffer cache and automate the buffer cache for customers. So in the next slide, you can see a feature that we introduced 2 years ago. So it's also not new, but this unload threshold parameter that we introduced allows HANA Cloud to release memory from the buffer cache to the temporary workspace for statement processing or other resource usages in the instance as such. The unload threshold parameter can be defined by the customer and is applied by the buffer cache for the release of unused but allocated memory. There is one disadvantage. The disadvantage here is that it's not automated. So the unload threshold needs to be defined by the customer based on her own calculation, how this unload threshold should be defined. So in the next innovation we did in end of Q4, here in this slide you see how the elasticity of the buffer cache works. When you start with the HANA Cloud instance, the buffer cache dynamically allocates memory when a query is submitted to NSE data. And based on the unload threshold parameter, the memory is dynamically released until the unload threshold parameter is reached. And so when a new query is submitted, then the used buffer cache size is increasing, allocation happens, and then we deallocate or we release memory again. So this is how it works, and this slide is showing how this growing and shrinking happens with the feature of the unload threshold. By default, it's set to 90%. And in end of Q4, we further automated the buffer cache. So it's in the next slide then, in the way that we can define an automation with two parameters. You see them on the right side. One is the automation interval. That means in which cadence the unload threshold parameter value should be calculated automatically based on the physical disk size of NSE data. And so that the administrator doesn't need to define them for herself. That's not required anymore. We in HANA Cloud, we calculate this automatically on a specific cadence that you can define with the automation interval. And the customer can also define the threshold ratio, the unload threshold ratio, which is the ratio between the buffer cache size and the physical disk size. It's 1/8 by default. So it's here in decimal, it's 0.125. That's the default value, but it can be also defined and changed by the customer. The reasoning behind is here really that HANA Cloud automates completely how the buffer cache is managed, how many memory is allocated, and then also released to the HANA Cloud Resource Manager. So this automation happened in Q4, and in Q2, we rounded it off in a way that we introduced also a corresponding UI. So in the next slide, you see then here a screenshot of the UI in the HANA Cloud Central tool. So you can switch on off the auto calculation of the unload threshold. You can define the unload threshold ratio and the automation interval. So it's very easy here to completely automate how the buffer cache is running. The only value that you have defined as a parameter is the max cache size of the buffer cache which is the maximum size of the buffer cache. Okay, so this was all about NSE and how we rounded off this buffer cache automation. So we come to some extensions in the table partitioning. The first one is that you can now assign permanent names to range partitions in heterogeneous partition schemas. So you may know that you will have partition IDs whenever you partition a table, and using the partition ID can be a bit inconvenient and also confusing because you need to remember the partition ID, and the partition ID is changing when you repartition a table. This doesn't happen with partition names. You can assign them to partitions additionally to the partition ID, and they remain stable. And you can use these partition names in DML statements, DDL statements, and gives you a very easy management of the table partitions. The partition names are human readable, so you don't need to refer any longer to partition IDs. And you see some examples. So they are written in a format you can immediately apply in your SQL console to create a partition table, and then to assign names, to alter names, to set partition properties like the load unit with the partition name, and you can set partition names, unset partition names, and so on. Everything is well documented in the SQL reference guide, but that's something you can try for your own. The next one is a feature that allows you to determine the partition assignment before you actually do a repartitioning of a table. So what you can do is you have partitioned a table, and you want to check how is the assignment of a data set with the new partitioning scheme, because you want to verify your new partition scheme, and you want to avoid any mistakes that you did with the partitioning scheme, especially for very complex table partition definitions. So you can use this function, the partition allocation function, after you have partitioned a table. And in the example, what you see here is in the preparation step, we partitioned a table with it's a two-level range partitioning scheme. It's not too complex, but it's a bit more complex than a single level partitioning. you create a source table with values that you would like to check with the partition allocation function, how they are then assigned to the different partition of the table. And finally, you determine the partition assignment by calling the partition allocation function with the target partition table and with the source table. And the rest of the query is more or less a conversion between the hash value that is calculated for the values that to be inserted and the real values. And the result, what you can see here as a screenshot, is that you really see, okay, which values are assigned to which partition ID. It doesn't work with partition names for now, so that's the combination of both new features are not there yet, but will come later. But it gives you a better understanding and visibility about the partition specification you did and how it will work with your values you would like to insert. And then finally, you can insert the values. The last feature we introduced with Q2 this year is that you get a visualization of your table repartitioning. It is based on the partition allocation functions to some extent, but additionally in HANA Cloud Central, you see a visualization which partitions of the old partition, let's say old partition specification, looks like with the new partition specification. So which data are moved from the existing old partitions to the new partitions of the new partition specifications. So what is the percentage? How many data are moving? You see how the new partition specification look like. So you give a much better transparency and understanding about your table repartitioning in a visualized way. Okay, that's from my end, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Rüdiger. I'd like to share now the updates in the area of the machine learning and natural language processing capabilities within HANA Cloud. And yeah, so the predictive analysis library in this release again has a rich enhancement set of new capabilities, and as indicated here, the lower slide, we basically, since its introduction in 2022, we have over 100 innovations provided alone by the predictive analysis library. So a continuous stream of enhancements to the library and functions, enhanced functions and new functions. And again, we have a couple of new capabilities, like in the area of text processing, tokenization of input text into the small tokens being processed by further text analysis or text processing functions, like, for example, the vector embedding functions, where we have a new text embedding model. We'll come to that in a second. We have more machine learning function being capable of processing vector type data, improvements in the area of outlier detection using isolation forests. Also cover that in more detail. And maybe some minor enhancements are that there's a new clustering functions capable of adding external knowledge or constraint information about maybe specific objects you want to make sure they are detected to be in the same target cluster as others. That would be one constraint, and these capabilities are now available with this new constraint clustering function. There's better hyperparameter search for the multitask, multi-layer perceptron model, and also some improvements for the ARIMA forecasting functions. And to the other topics will also come into more details. So here's the example of the new text tokenization function, where, as already mentioned, we have some input text which we process. That could be log text or whatever kind of large text you have. And before maybe even splitting the text into smaller chunks, you may want to parse it and exclude stop words or specific allow lists which you can specify, or drop lists of words which you don't want to be part of the tokenized text for further analysis. So that's a key feature applied by some of our stakeholders who basically process log data with HANA Cloud before it's passed on to embedding models and generative AI tasks. We have a new embedding model version delivered in the Q2 release of HANA Cloud. It's the fine-tuned, derived from a different model, the Roberta base encoder model. We trained it with fine-tuned it with even more data to service and languages to service, and improved accuracy for multilingual or cross-lingual retrieval scenarios, as well as short text scenarios, like if you want to search for column names, table names, stuff like that. So that should be better serviced with this new model called SAP_DXY, and then that date and numeric information about the date, release date of the model. We now support 8 languages. So we added Chinese, Japanese, and Italian, and also the token limit, the default token limit has been increased. You basically can use the model with the same functions as you did before, and you then can specify as the model version that new reference as given here in the example. Then a really nice and feature is that now vector columns or vector type data can now also processed with more functions, or almost all the algorithms. If we think of our AutoML engines for classification, regression, and time series forecasting, we can now simply feed in vector data as kind of a first-class citizen data type into the AutoML pipeline, and can be processed as part of the model fitting or prediction or evaluation, etc. So it's just like any other data type, a key enhancements which open up many more opportunities for leveraging text data or embedded text data as part of your AutoML model. So you'll see that also in a second in the actual demo. Then outlier detection with isolation forest is a trending function and capability which has been available for 1.5 years, I think, or more. But more recently, many customers have reached out and asking for new capability, support for categorical features to be considered as outliers, also being able to analyze outliers in parallel on several data subsets using the massive labor which has been added, and most prominently also being able to explain the outlier data using Shapley value explanations, which you can see here on the bottom example. Basically, what it does is it provides the information about which columns contribute to this outlier decision. So -1 in that label column are the outliers, which column values contribute to that outlier decisioning, to which degree or percentage. So x1 is about 75% contributing to that decision that this ID 6 or 7 is an outlier. And scenarios where we've seen this applied is kind of detecting outliers in financial accounting data, like the universal journal data, ICDOCA. Then for productivity scenarios, we have added experiment tracking capabilities with part procedures and task scheduling capabilities. There's a specific also blog published going into more details, but basically what you want to do during each run where you train a model, you want to protocol and be able to go back to what was the data I used, what are the parameters used for the model, and what has been the metrics, the model quality basically achieved with a given training run. And the experiment tracking capability is really helpful, along with possibly the scheduling capability where we can asynchronously schedule respective training tasks also from the SQL side or the Python side of the HANA ML interfaces. A nice new feature from the automatic predictive library is the analysis of data drift using the compare data method, which has become available with APL 2508. Basically, we can compare multiple data sets, could be a historic version of something and the current version, and by that we detect, okay, the value distribution of some of the values in different columns has been changed, and that's a trigger to retrain a given model, or we detect that some data has changed or is distributed unexpectedly, and that might be an indicator that there's a potential fraud in our, again, financial accounting data. It's a nice feature in the automated predictive library available. And there's also a blog as a reference on this slide. Then as a final kind of glimpse into the Python machine learning client and what has been improved there. Again, on our HANA ML samples side, there is this sample notebook with all the features and enhancements summarized with a demo, and one demo I want to specifically showcase here how the AutoML methods basically process vector data. So I have a table here with car complaints text, MCU manufacturer detect something's wrong in my car. That is in the same table embedded using the vector embedding function. That's basically what I use as feature now for my model training, listing that here in the columns I want to pass into my modeling, and I'm using the AutoML engine, automatic classification, and basically it just runs, and I'm not executing this to save time. It's actually not that long running a task here, but I just wanted to illustrate that there's no big change. I can just use vector columns as features for my model development using AutoML. And with that, I'd like to stop and pass on to the next colleague. Thank you very much.
Hello once again, everybody. Today we'll be giving the updates about the security enhancements which we have for HANA Cloud, HANA DB in specific. So I would like to kick off with the feature which is called that you can allow multiple X509 providers for the same issue. So basically now you can create multiple providers based on the priorities to control the order of application checks, ensuring that preferred providers are prioritized, and every X509 provider gets the priority value from 1 to 155 and should be unique across all providers. And if no priority value is provided during the creation, a lower priority is automatically be assigned. And there are several identity providers for the same issue URL. They are evaluated in order of their priority, starting from the highest one. When one provider fails, the other one with the next lower priority then checks. So what's the benefit for that? It ensures a seamless application by allowing fallback to alternative providers and support multiple certificate authorities, enabling adherence to the different security requirements. The next one is that checking all matching providers for JWT authentication, and enhanced JWT token processing allows integration of the new providers by automatically switching to the next suitable one if the current one lacks mapping or user creation configuration. This feature minimizes disruptions and ensures smooth transitions when provider priorities change. The next one, which we consider one of the biggest enhanced security enhancements for this quarter, is the audit policy filters based on the user authentication method. And in SAP applications such as S4HANA or ECS, the technical user can be employed by operational users to log on to SAP HANA DB for maintenance and troubleshooting purposes. And these actions should be specifically audited. And typically, we know that technical users are identified using by X509 keys or certificates, while operational users commonly authenticate using time-limited passwords. And this distinction distinction necessitates the implementation of audit filters based on the authentication methods to effectively track and manage operational user action. And what's the benefit of that? It allows the writing of the audit log by including or excluding multiple authentication methods available, and also take advantage of the split authentication setup in S/4HANA and ECS or enterprise cloud security scenarios. And also it prepares and enables audit policies for support cases that will automatically only write an audit log if a user is logging in using password-based authentication. The next feature is a rather small one, but also important. There's no Open Connect SQL for a logged-on user. So HANA-DB now optimizes the user connection by ignoring redundant connect statements when the username matches the current session users. And the main benefit for that is that it optimizes the most expensive part of the authentication process, which involves avoiding the password validation. Important to note here that from the security point of view, this is not a risk because even if a wrong password is supplied, the session user will remain the same. The last but not the least, from the encryption domain, we changed the default encryption mode in HANA Cloud from IIS to 156 in CBC, which is cipher block chaining mode, to CTR, which is counter mode. And the benefit of this is that by standardizing the CTR as a default mode during the instance provisioning, we can ensure a uniform encryption approach across all regions and deployments, supporting international compliance requirements. More information with some also screenshots are available in the blog post will be shared with you later. Thank you very much.
So today I will be speaking about some of the HANA tooling updates that we have and which helps in streamlining the development process here. So one of the innovation that we have here is to generate the test data with the help of AI. So here the Database Explorer will let you populate the data or let you populate the tables with the AI generated data. You can choose the number of rows and you can choose the number of tables simultaneously and populate the data accordingly, and also choose your own LLM for it. And at the end of it, you can either save it and this will be reflected in your table. And also if you want to furthermore customize the data according to your own wish, you can also grab the insert statements and do the changes accordingly. Next up, we have the conversational SQL console. With this one, we already had one before, which was basically we were looking into the generation of the SQL statement with respect to the system views and tables. Right now, we can go beyond it and also have the SQL console SQL statement generated with respect to your custom data models as well. That means like if you can go into your HTI container and write a simple natural language statement, or you run your prompt and it will generate the SQL statement accordingly. Now let's quickly have a look at this one and see how we can do that in the HANA Database Explorer extension in the build code here. So here you see in the left side, you see a couple of the HTI containers here, and I will look into one of them and see the tables, which is residing in this HTI container, and I have 3 different tables here. And with this one, I would like to generate some data. Let me look into another HTI container where there are a couple more tables, and you can select accordingly, like how many of the tables that you want. But right now, I'm just clicking on this one and clicking on the option generate data using generative AI. This will open a new tab. Here, it is already selecting the table that you have selected, but in additional to it, you can also select furthermore tables here and then click on OK. So right now, let's just work with one table and see how the data gets generated. So here I have chosen number of rows to be generated. The number of data that I want to see is as 10, and let's click on it. You will also get a disclaimer about the accuracy here, but you can also, it's just for you to note. And then it will take a couple of seconds and you will see the data that has been generated as per the table metadata. And also you will see the SQL, which you can also grab it, and then you can also execute on your own by customizing yourself. So you see, as you can see here, we already have like number of 10 rows of data here with respect to your table, and then you can click on save, and this will be reflected in your table as well. So if I click on open data, it would just show me the respective data that has been added recently, along with the data that I already had previously. Okay. I have to refresh this one, but moving on so that I do not take in another additional time on this one. So here you see, this is another HTI container. I have a set of tables which has 3 different tables here, and I would like to query on this table, which is the patient's detail. And you see that I have like 5 rows with the respective details, and like I can just execute a SQL statement that says, let me open a new SQL console and then enter a normal prompt that says, show me the patients whose age is above 30. So and we will run the prompt. Again, you get the disclaimer, and it will take a couple of seconds, and it will look into your schema, and it will generate a SQL script for you. And then with that, you can already run the select, and you can see that it has been giving accurate results based on the query that was generated with our simple prompt. Just another thing to keep in mind when you use the SQL query is you have to make sure, if you go into your settings and if you go into your extensions and look into the HANA Database Explorer extension, that this particular option is checked, because in order to for it to like look into your data model, you will have to check this particular part. Otherwise, it will just go with the normal generation here. So with this, I conclude my demo, and next up we have Rob, who will continue further.
So today I'm talking about the new thin clone feature for Data Lake Relational Engine. This feature builds on the work we did for our fast restore in previous release. So lots of reasons why we want to clone a database. Number one, using it for development and testing, QA. So being able to validate performance before doing an upgrade, copying production data over so you can use it when doing developing new features. And one of the big questions when you're dealing with data lake relational engine databases, which are tens of terabytes, key target audience for this is our on-premise IQ customers who average 80 to 100 terabyte database sizes. So just like our fast restore, where we can restore a database in about 20 minutes, regardless of size, it's important to be able to clone it quickly as well. So what we're doing here is in our parent database instance, we're going to clone. We have all of the database pages to store the data, and we have a page list, which keeps track of the active versions of the pages. And we also keep track of all the pages for any given backup timestamp as well. All right. And when we want to create a thin clone, what we do is we don't copy all of the database pages over. We copy over this page list. And then as we start making changes to this database, whether we make changes to the parent database, we write out a new page version here for the parent database, or whether we make a change to the thin clone, we write out its new unique database page there. So that's what we're doing with the thin clone feature. Great for usability testing. What else? Things to emphasize: this thin clone is not just a read-only copy. It is fully updatable. So you can do insert, update, delete. You can drop tables, add tables, modify tables, all of the things. So that's important. Even though it's still attached to the parent in terms of the overall storage, it's fully updatable. And just a quick look at the UI here this is through HANA Cloud Central. You choose your parent instance. So in this case, I was on my aptly named thin clone test parent. I go to the actions menu here. I say create thing clone. The thing clone dialog then asks me for a name for it, and I get to provision the compute for this thing clone. So the compute for the thing clone is completely independent of the compute for the parent instance, but most of the billing is going to show up as part of the parent. The storage is still part of the parent. Clones can be deleted anytime, but what you can't do is you cannot delete a parent instance if that thing clone still exists. And that's actually all I'm going to talk about for thing clones.
Let me just give you a few remarks. With the Q2 release, we once again released a bunch of contents to give you like a broader overview over the topics to skill you up on the innovations coming to HANA Cloud. So our What's New documentation, so the technical SAP help documentation is updated and basically explains you all the recent innovations in very, very detail. So if you do have any specific innovations you want to learn more about, definitely have a look at the technical documentation. If you're looking for a rather short overview in a video format, I can recommend having a look at our teaser with a few top picks of the recent release. We also, as always, published our What's New in SAP HANA Cloud blog post, which covers not all innovations, but a lot noteworthy ones in more details. And as always, we do have 2 blog posts that are covering specific features. So we once again have one on calculation view features because there has been a lot of innovation going on in Q2, and same for the machine learning. Christoph already mentioned it. There are a bunch of new innovations coming, and if you want to get a more detailed view, he also only had a limited time here. Definitely check out his blog post. If you want to stay up to date on everything in and around HANA Cloud, I can recommend our community tag. So always, if there are any new blog posts on HANA Cloud, they are tagged with the What's New tag. If you want to get your journey started with HANA Cloud, have a look at our Open SAP courses. And then lastly, 2 more things. We still do have an early adopter care program for elasticity in HANA Cloud. So if you're looking into elastic compute nodes, SQL on files, and larger instances, this might be of interest for you. Definitely have a look. We're, as always, sharing the slides, including the links to all of these resources. And last but not least, we already heard it, we enhanced the self-service migration tool. So if you're generally interested in migrating to HANA Cloud because you want to benefit from all of these great new features, there will be workshops happening virtually from July to September. You can pick the date that fits your schedule best. Definitely have a look if this might be a path you want to follow. Our colleagues are doing a great job there and would love to see people registering. Thank you very much to everyone who has joined this webinar. Definitely make sure to check out our What's New blog post and the What's New teaser, as well as the technical documentation for more details on the innovations. And with this, hope to see you next quarter again. And thank you very much.